Hi everyone, this is Bilal. It is December 22nd. I'm here to give you some updates before the end of the year. In my last video, I talked about what Google has done in the last couple of weeks, and today I'll kick things off by going over what OpenAI has done in the last week. All right, to start things off, a report has come out that OpenAI's margin on compute has jumped to 70%, which is up from 52% at the end of last year, which is pretty good. And this has been achieved by lower per token compute costs, which means basically models are actually more efficient now compared to at least last year. And then the revenue is also increasing due to a lot of the enterprise contracts that OpenAI is going after. Now, Sam Altman kind of famously said that they initially wanted to go after consumers because they think once you capture consumer market, it's easier to get into the enterprise market. And we're clearly seeing that with how OpenAI is getting into enterprise customers now. All right, it's important to note that compute margin is basically the revenue achieved by running inference on your compute, kind of minus the compute costs, right? This does not include R&D, model training, operating costs, any capex investments you've made, because if you take those into account, obviously OpenAI is not profitable right now, and we don't really know when they will be profitable. But I think Sam Altman basically said somewhere around in 5 years, so basically 2030 is when they expect to be profitable, and that's kind of not what they're going after right now anyway. All right, moving on. In the next funding round, OpenAI could raise up to $100 billion, which would potentially value the company around $800 billion. That's going to be the largest private funding round ever. Obviously, they'll use that money to invest in compute to basically train their models better and better, because they obviously have to compete with the likes of Google, who has deep pockets. So they have to basically keep putting money into their models and make sure they are state of the art. All right, and they've already kind of made huge commitments in infrastructure. So I think close to even like $1 trillion in the next 5 years. So they need all the money they can get. Companies are jumping to invest in OpenAI right now. For example, SoftBank, which is a major investor in OpenAI, they made a commitment, I think, end of last year, for around $10 to $15 billion, and at a valuation of around 400 billion. Now, at the end of this year, they're forced to kind of fulfill that commitment, and to basically be able to kind of fulfill that commitment, they had to sell their entire stake in Nvidia, which was around $5.8 billion. That kind of caused some news as well. And then they also liquidated part of their holdings in T-Mobile, around 4.8 billion, and then remaining, I believe they've been able to get some debt against their other holdings. I think when this is done, OpenAI's investment will be around 10% of the SoftBank's total investment, which is pretty good. And they want to do it as soon as possible, because the sooner they do it, the less risk of their investment getting diluted, because clearly last year's round was at 400 billion, and this year we're looking at 800 billion. So yeah. All right. Other than SoftBank, we have Amazon, who is really interested in making investment in OpenAI. I believe they're trying to make a $10 billion investment. That's basically to kind of reduce the Microsoft Azure's exclusivity with OpenAI. So we know that that's only where OpenAI's models are right now. So what ideally Amazon wants is to be able to provide OpenAI GPT-5.2 in Bedrock, for example, right? And basically all earlier AWS made a investment in Anthropic, and they were able to get Claude into AWS. So they want to do the same with OpenAI's GPT models. All right. One thing that OpenAI experimented with, which kind of did not work, was their model router system or process, where when you kind of asked a question, it kind of determined which is the right model to use for your question. It kind of caused a lot of confusion, and a lot of users were not satisfied. And because of that, they kind of rolled that back. And now I believe if the default model that it goes to is the GPT 5.2 instant. So yeah, that's the good thing about OpenAI. They try things, and if they fail, they can roll it back and try the next thing. Yeah. All right. All right. Yeah. Talking about the latest models from OpenAI, they launched GPT 5.2. This was basically to counter Gemini 3 Pro. I've covered this, I think, in the previous weeks. GPT 5.2 was actually a huge advancement, especially in the real world enterprise work. And now they've just launched GPT 5.2 Codex, which is kind of a optimized version for coding. It obviously scored better in the benchmarks like SWE-Bench verified and other kind of coding benchmarks. It's designed to operate as a persistent coding agent. So you can, like now with coding agents, you want an agent that can do planning, execution, verification in like multiple loops. You can let it run for like even hours, and it should continue working on your application. So that's kind of what GPT 5.2 Codex is good for. And then obviously it's optimized from a cost standpoint as well. So like using 5.2 Codex is going to be cheaper for coding. And like I've been saying, coding is a very sticky use case. Once developers get used to it, they are not going to change. We've seen that in various other software-related tools in the past, and we're going to see this right now. Now, Claude is definitely kind of leading in that, but also remember that Claude is kind of really like expensive, at least two times more expensive than GPT 5.2. So OpenAI is kind of in the middle. If you remember from my last video, Gemini 3 Flash came out, which was obviously from Google. It's obviously their cheapest, and it's the fastest and cheapest model. Again, it's optimized for like high throughput, low latency. But the good thing about it is it's 4 times cheaper than Gemini 3 Pro and kind of similarly cheaper than GPT 5.2. Right. So what basically Google is doing, that they couldn't really beat the benchmark scores of Opus 4.5 and GPT 5.2. So they're like making it like really cheaper. So in use cases where you don't really need like really advanced level of kind of coding ability, I would totally use Gemini if I can get like more credits from him. Right. All right. Moving on from kind of the Gemini and the OpenAI talks. Merge Labs is developing a non-invasive brain-computer interface, so BCI. Basically, this technology is something that reads neural signals without basically implanting anything inside your brain, right? It's spun out of a non-profit research group called Forest Neurotech. It's backed by, or it's actually, I think it's founded by Sam Altman. And the goal is basically to enable like human AI interaction. Imagine an AI model that has direct access to your kind of thoughts in your brain, right? And it's supposed to be a safer alternative to like implanted BCIs, like for example Elon Musk's Neuralink company. So I think if this starts to work, Merge Labs can actually achieve mass adoption, and clearly we're seeing if something like that really works, that's the ultimate level of stickiness, right? You have like a chip in your brain, or device in your brain, like working with you really well. There's no scenario where somebody's going to give that up and go to something else, right? Right. Moving on, Cursor, which is the AI coding platform, which is awesome. And they have acquired Graphite. Graphite is a code review platform, which is really good at kind of code reviews. If it incorporated AI into code reviews and made it much better because of it. Now, this is going to basically improve Cursor's kind of overall offering, kind of making it more of an end-to-end AI development platform for developers. I think Cursor is doing actually a lot in this space. We saw recently they introduced a browser functionality within Cursor. So if you were to like test something in React and test it, it kind of opens it up over there. It has complete access to it. It can look at console logs. It can basically look at components. You can basically go into that browser and click on different components and ask questions from the AI model around it, right? So or the AI agent, and it's actually pretty good. So I think Cursor is actually doing a very decent job in this domain, and yeah. So and I use it personally, so it's pretty good. All right, moving on to Nvidia, they've acquired ShedMD, which is the company behind Slurm. So if you don't know, Slurm is a high-performance computing scheduler, and that is used to run various workloads, which include workloads like AI and machine learning. Slurm is actually really popular. It's used in half of the top 10. and the top 100 systems in the top 500 list of supercomputers. You can look it up. The list is available. It's pretty cool. And obviously, they generally, when organizations acquire open source tools, there's always a plan to kind of making it a paid product. We'll see what happens. For now, they have said it's going to remain an open source and vendor neutral platform. But obviously, I'm sure they're ready to kind of have influence over this tool, which is used by so many organizations. Have been using Slurm for the last 8 years. It's awesome. We use it at University of Chicago. So yeah, we're using it on our GPUs as well. So I'm excited to see what Nvidia does to kind of make it better to run on top of Nvidia's GPUs, and we'll see what happens. For more news on Nvidia, they've launched their own lineup of open weight models named Nematron 3. I love this news because I think this is the first major US company that's entered the open weight market. Now, you remember Meta had its Llama models, but it wasn't so successful, at least in the last 1 year. And I think their latest model, I'm forgetting the name, maybe Mango or something, that they're planning on making it a closed weight model, right? So the open weight market is basically dominated by global companies basically Chinese companies like DeepSeek and Alibaba, and European companies like Mistral. So it's good to see that US is kind of entering that market as well. I would love to see Nvidia kind of have a model that's optimized for every lineup of GPUs that they kind of have, even like desktop GPUs that you have. And if I knew that there was a model that would run most efficiently on my GPU, I would definitely use that over anything else, right? All right, kind of final 2 news would be Oracle made a comeback in the financial markets in the last week or so. This has happened because they basically TikTok has signed a deal to spin off its US operations into a group that will be controlled by mostly American investors, which is led by Oracle. And this along with basically better accounting numbers that came up, which gave investors more confidence in Oracle. And that's kind of the reason why the stock kind of came back. I think it's came back to the point where it was before the OpenAI deal, which is still good. And also, along with this news, Oracle is also partnering with the US Department of Energy on the Genesis mission, which is basically where Oracle provides AI infrastructure to support scientific computing, energy research, and national security type workloads. All right, last piece of news would be Databricks has raised a $10 billion round of late stage kind of funding and this has happened at a $134 billion valuation. If you don't know, Databricks is a unified kind of data plus AI platform where enterprise can store all of their data lakes, run analytics on top of that data, train machine learning models on that data, and then deploy generative AI applications or generative AI models on top of that data and stuff, right? It's kind of, they've made a platform where you can have everything kind of in one stack, which is pretty good. And this is an enterprise focused application, which is doing really well, obviously, in this AI world. All right, everyone, that's everything for today. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.